I don't want to get zinged for using copyrighted music, so I just made my own for the video. You can dig into Broncho's catalog here and here. All aboard the natural pleasure hype train. That's right, today we're talking about one of my all-time favorites, Broncho. They've got a new record dropping in a few days, and I'm eager to talk about it. I'm not a music journalist, I'm just a guy with a lot to say. We're going back in time to about 2014 for this story. I was neck deep in contemporary DIY and punk music. Burger Records was happening, but hadn't really exploded yet. Egg punk was stirring in the womb, and lo-fi garage rock was on my radar, but limited to such bands as The Spits, No Bunny, Black Lips, The Mummies, King Khan, and Mark Sultan. There was this streaming service called Pandora, and I didn't use it because I was into physical media, but my boss did. I worked at a guitar store part-time, and he left music playing for the customers. One day I plugged in a few bands and it started recommending new music. This was a big move for me. I went on to encounter many all-time favorites including Total Babes, Audacity, and Broncho. For context, Broncho presently sits at number 3 on my top 100 secular bands list, which is admittedly out of date because I need to add the weaker thans somewhere in the top 20, but nonetheless, the top 10 is a huge deal for me. These are bands that I've listened to absolutely non-stop and have not lost their shine. So what makes Broncho so special to me? I'll be transparent and I'll show my hand completely here, perhaps against my better judgment. Broncho is actually cool. Listening to their music always filled me with a sense of adequacy. Discussing coolness as an aesthetic more so than a subjective standard, think Sunglasses or Sonic the Hedgehog for reference, there are a lot of bands in the world trying to be cool. And to my specific taste and standard, it's not super common that one actually succeeds. What's even more baffling is Broncho's approach because considering the nature of indie rock, I always got the impression that the easiest way to look cool was to pretend not to be cool and thus looking chill, whimsical, and indifferent in the process. Broncho doesn't seem to take this approach. Instead, they full send the cool, and somehow they hit the mark. Of course there is an element of indifference to their music, but it's not like the Shins. It's not like Modest Mouse. It's not like Tokyo Police Club. To put it another way, I absolutely never get downtrodden vibes from this band. There is not one single song that begs my sympathy. Instead, it's always a moody, ambient, melodic, cool jam. The first time I heard Broncho's debut, I was broadsided. It was dark in tone, but fast-paced and oddly uplifting. It exuded a confidence and sure-footedness that I hadn't experienced before. Dare I say that it offered me a dose of pretension in a time when I was overwhelmed by insecurity. Yeah, it made me feel cool. It was a refreshing change of pace from the defeatist attitudes I was often encountering in punk music. This was something different. It was garage rock done right. Listening to Broncho took me out of my small-town mindset and made me feel like I had big city problems. It was just the best. I was able to see the band at the 7th Street Entry in Minneapolis during their Just Enough Hip to Be Woman tour. My buddy Mark took me for my birthday. I didn't know any of the songs at the time since I don't think they were playing much old material, but I was still blown away. I couldn't believe how good the drummer sounded. I think Ryan was playing one of those amp-in-case Silvertone guitars, but I was super impressed because we had one of them at the shop and I always thought it was really difficult to play. I suppose we have different shaped hands for a reason. I bought the record and you guys, it was a slow burn, and I mean slow. That record grew on me every time I listened to it for over a decade, and honestly, I think it's still growing on me. I just don't get sick of it. I think I said the same thing about Milk Music, but Just Enough Hip is one of those albums that was simply inexhaustible for me. And that just blows my mind because usually I only get a few dozen listens from an album before I leave it behind in fond memory. It's one of those albums that makes me nostalgic for early childhood, which is super uncommon for me as well. The only other bands that really manage to give me that feeling on occasion are Guided by Voices and Calm Truths. Also Black Marble, I almost forgot. They're way nostalgic. When Double Vanity came out, I was getting pretty big into the bottle and things became somewhat of a blur. I listened to the album on repeat during an entire theatrical showing of one of the Disney Star Wars movies. I think it was The Last Jedi. All Time is a total surrender. I don't know how they thought to convey that emotion, and I don't know how they pulled it off. It just sounds like heaven to me. I don't know how else to explain it. I know that not everyone will experience it the way I do, especially considering my belief that when you listen to a song, you're also listening to every song you've heard before it. Human beings are very good at recognizing patterns. That's why we're always comparing bands to other bands, but to my ear, this was Broncho's third original new sound. Was their sound evolving or decaying into dust? It was like a dream. I don't know how else to explain it. The whole album focused on a slower, dreamier, more ambient aesthetic. I feel that it exudes a surrender and a serenity which deserve careful examination and discussion, because these elements are substantial. My perceived boost of pretension was there, but it also wasn't. I don't know how to explain it. The music was truly detached from the world I can see and touch. Perhaps in part because Broncho didn't seem to be locked into a scene the way many of my other favorites did. There was an element of mystery. I couldn't name any associated acts or even any bands who were deriving excessive inspiration from them, or vice versa. I didn't truly know what they were going for or what they were going to do next. All I knew was that I loved it. I purchased the digital download of Bad Behavior in the break room of the liquor store where I sold my 20s. I suppose that's fitting. I can't say quite as much about that album, but it hasn't been with me quite as long either. Get in My Car has been in constant, and I mean constant, rotation since I first heard it. So when I go to examine the soundtrack of my life, I'm overwhelmed by memories and emotions. I'm not afraid to tell the truth about any of it because truth is context, and we need context to have sanity. So I want to give people context. I am eager to give people context, especially as artificial technology skyrockets and bombards us with ever-increasing falsehoods of all kinds. I like to focus on what's real and what works. It's a difficult discussion, but considering the trends of the times, considering music and the industry that tries to claim it, Broncho can certainly be considered a success. I've always felt that if even only one person truly cares about your band, that the labor of love is justified. Broncho was with me when I was young and ready to take the world by storm. They were there with me when I was neck deep in addiction. They were with me in recovery, and somehow, against all the odds, they're with me today. Despite my drastic change in worldview, despite my massive changes in taste and music preference, despite my increased sensitivity to what I put into my mind, I still love this band. The future for songwriters and creatives is looking pretty weird. I've learned a lot of lessons the hard way, but perhaps most important is that the people behind the music are far more important than the creative work they produce. That's something I actually had trouble thinking about before. I am humbled to admit. That being said, Ryan, I hope you and the gang are well. I hope that you're finding substantial and lasting solutions as the world and technology feed us more and more artificial content. I could say a lot. If you're interested, you can check out my other videos. I'm kind of a man on a mission these days. My journey with music hasn't been too glamorous, but I've discovered profound meaning in the process. If you're curious to know a bit more about my journey with all this, check out Story of Four Punks. Thanks for being you. Your music is genuinely transcendent.